in a car. You should actually just fly. I'm not even joking. But yeah, so I mean that's dark. I think maybe to lighten the mood, I'll react to one video, and then I'll react to Mr. Pizza's thing, because he's the only reason he's here in this chat is to watch me react to this thing that he made. I'm guessing. So I'm gonna react to this. Maybe by then, the mood will be a little bit more chill, and then we'll get to Mr. Pizza's video. And there's some things in the react requests in my Discord server. If you want me to react to something that of interest to you, put in the react request. I'll react to it. But I also do have some videos queued up for me to react to as well. Some topics that I'm interested in, and this is actually one of them right here.
Mr. Pizza. Said in the chat.
Hold on, let me see here.
Hey, now I've stayed for the new stuff.
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing around. We've got this video here. This is from What Do You Meme? It's called "Conservative Christians Are Losing the Plot." And it seemed kind of interesting, the title alone. Actually, let me refresh this because I've had this loaded up in my browser for a while. I'm really curious to see what he has to say there. That's just so that the comments will be updated. So.
Well, it's official. What we once knew about conservative Christian politics has come to an end. And for proof of this, all you need to do is take a look at the recent Benny Johnson interview with Andrew Tate and why it's causing so much division in the...
There was a Benny Johnson interview with Andrew Tate? These are two... I don't like either of these content creators. Whenever I see Benny Johnson, I just see cringe, maybe not bad faith, but just kind of like shallow right-wing argumentation. Andrew Tate is just, he seems very dismissive, sexist, not particularly the great person to be around. The tricky thing is that he's funny. People who are toxic in the way that Andrew Tate's toxic tend to be pretty funny, which makes them like really great content creators, really interesting to observe. But that's different than being like a good person or being someone that you should get advice from. And when your whole shtick is giving advice, it makes it kind of difficult to keep track of. Mr. Pizza says, "Ain't no way Andrew Tate's still popping off." Yeah. Nobody killed him. He said, Mr. Pizza says Andrew Tate don't want to die off. Of course he doesn't want to die off. But yeah, he's still around. I think that he still got his Rumble channel. I think that's where he streams now because he's banned on the other platforms. Pretty surprised he didn't get a Kick deal. He should have gotten a Kick deal. If I was Kick, I would definitely give him a deal. But yeah.
Take a look at the recent Benny Johnson interview with Andrew Tate and why it's...
Also, these are two people I would not have expected to intersect, because Benny Johnson's more political than Andrew Tate is. Andrew Tate's more about like relationships and how people interact with each other, the war of the sexes and the red pill conversation, all that stuff. Which maybe Benny Johnson gets into that. I mean, he's cringe, so I don't watch him. But I don't know. These just don't seem like the types of people you would expect to see interact with each other.
Causing so much division in the conservative party. So for context, let's just be clear about where we came from. Political conservative Christianity was traditionally unified by things like conventional family structures, integrity, and biblical faithfulness. True. But in the last decade, there's been a drastic shift from being united by conservative and biblical principles to contrarian figures who don't share Christian or conservative values at all. And all of this is why Benny Johnson's interview with Tate was the final straw for so many Christian conservatives, primarily because of how Benny engaged with Tate during their interview.
Someone who I think will deliver absolute profound takes on what is happening right now, because he himself has been the victim of state-sponsored incarceration, lawfare.
I'm sorry. I can't believe, okay, actually I can believe because it's Benny Johnson, but like calling Andrew Tate like incredibly profound is kind of funny.
And abuses of justice for political reasons. Andrew Tate, top G.
Is he saying that he doesn't believe the allegations? Now, I reacted to the Vice documentary, which I've realized, I think I did this 2 years ago. I just now realized that I have not uploaded this to the 9doobie Highlights channel. So a lot of you guys might not have watched it. I think it's my most popular live stream, though. Go to 9doobie streams and go to live and then sort by popular. It'll probably show up. But there was a lot of evidence in there, I think, that Andrew Tate was not this innocent angel. And the fact that the case has gone on for so long, I think also says something about the credibility of the claims against him.
From the podium.
From the podium. And I only pray that Republicans can grow a backbone, stop crying their eyes out over old videos I made, and understand sometimes you have to be a bad guy to do the right thing, like Batman. And we need to clean the swamp, lock these people up, teach them all a lesson.
Now, Benny calling Tate a victim after Tate bragged for years about the things that...
Oh, the shirt, the fitting, it's awful. Oh my goodness, this guy needs to watch some Frugal Aesthetic. That's an awful fit.
All a lesson.
Now, Benny calling Tate a victim after Tate bragged for years about the things
Dude,
that he's been...
Dude looks like he robbed like a I don't know, like the wife of an usher or something. Like he looks like he robbed an old church lady. Like
lesson.
Now, Benny calling Tate a victim after Tate bragged for years about the things that he's been arrested for is wild. And Donald Trump's lawyer even jumped in to say this.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I'm a big fan.
And just as a rule of thumb, when you're interviewing someone who's being investigated for crimes as serious as Tate's, you should probably be pushing back pretty hard and press him on the facts surrounding his charges. But Benny and Trump's lawyer didn't. And
the one thing I will say is that if you genuinely don't believe the claims, then like, and that's one thing. It's, you know, Benny Johnson here very clearly doesn't believe the claims. And maybe he's done a lot of videos and stuff talking about why he doesn't believe those claims, but I think that the claims against him are pretty credible. I don't think you're obligated to believe all claims in these types of scenarios. I think it's just like very dubious when you're supposed to be someone who is a political commentator and you don't believe a story that has as much backing as the Andrew Tate allegations do. So that is also, you know, a red flag for sure. At least it should be for viewers.
And this isn't the first time that leading conservative figures have taken this approach of Tate. I mean, we can all remember how Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson's interviews with Tate went as well. To say that Benny, Candace, and Tucker gave Tate softball interviews would be a massive understatement. They practically went out of their way to help him deceive the public about his charges. So
George Janko's interview with Andrew Tate I thought was good. It took a little bit of a different angle, I think, than like going into all of the accusations against him and stuff. But I thought it was a good interview.
As you can imagine, those who believe that the conservative party should be united by conservative values have said things like this.
He rips off thousands of people with his scam Hustlers University. He preaches the virtue of treating women in a way you would never, ever allow anyone to treat your wife or your daughter.
That's true.
And Shapiro wasn't alone here. Liz Wheeler, Lila Rose, and others have criticized Tate's embrace by conservative influencers as well. And seemingly in response to the pushback, Benny made a couple of tweets about it and even quoted Jesus saying, "He who is without sin cast the first stone," seemingly implying that we can't judge the actions of Tate since we too are sinners. But
that's completely out of context. But also, it's one thing to be like, I'm not going to cancel this person, right? I'm going to have a conversation with them. I'll have them on the podcast. I would have Andrew Tate on this stream. He would never go on. I'm so bad at scheduling things, I don't even know if we'd be able to make it work. But he would never go on. Nobody watches my streams except for like the two people in the chat right now. But if I had the means and the ability and the scheduling capacity, I most certainly would have Andrew Tate on my streams. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you're like gassing this dude up, talking about how you're such a big fan of him and how he's extremely profound. That is a completely different beast altogether. Mr. Pizza in the chat said, I want to start doing a podcast again sometime. Would you be down to be a guest if I do that? Oh, absolutely, dude. Dude, I would love to be in a podcast so bad. That'd be awesome, dude. Yeah, if you'd like to have me on like a cycle of rotating guests, pencil me in. Just let me know when you need me to be on, and I'll hop right in there.
As we'll come to see, this entirely misses the point. Other proclaimed conservative Christians like Russell Brand and Candace Owens also jumped to defend Benny and Tate. Candace even argued that conservatives who made their careers by using free speech shouldn't criticize Benny for interviewing Andrew Tate. But not everyone accepted this criticism. People like David Wood pointed out that her statement was entirely hypocritical, while several others pointed out that those defending Benny seemed to ultimately be missing the point of the criticism. One issue is that Tate is actively against conservative and Christian values, even a few days ago saying things like this.
Don't let these conservative losers tell you, get married. No.
Ben Shapiro, little Jew. The reason they'll say Andrew Tate's a bad guy is really because they know I get to live free and do what I want, live with my friends, and have endless children from endless beauty queens.
And the other issue of
so terrible, dude. So terrible. But I will say this. I think there's one conservative. Well, I don't know if this is a conservative value. I think the fact that Andrew Tate adheres to at least some semblance of traditional gender roles, right? Like men have their own role, you know, in work and at the home, and women have their own particular role hit there. That is a conservative value. Of course, what those roles exactly are and how rigid one should adhere to them, completely different things. I think that there's some leeway. You can still be conservative if you are one way or the other. But to say that like he stands against everything that conservatism, even traditional conservatism, stands for, isn't entirely true. Now, he does come off as like the rebellious, bratty son of one of those classical conservatives where it's like, oh no, I am going to run around and sleep around. I'm not gonna get married. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna be with the boys. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna chase money. Like those types of things, you know, they sort of don't align with classic conservatism. But you know, he does have some views that certainly are congruent with it.
Free and do what I want, live with my friends, and have endless children from endless beauty queens.
And the other issue of people like Benny Hill Tate isn't the fact that they platformed him, but instead it's the apparent refusal to push him about these serious allegations and essentially doing PR for him. They always seem to claim having some degree of ignorance about his case while assuming that the charges against him have no merit.
It's a disgrace what they're doing. You know, obviously I don't know the facts of your case, but I know that they probably wouldn't be happening if you were not yourself.
Yo, I love how the people who don't know the information about Andrew Tate's cases are the ones who support him. I've never seen anyone be like, oh yeah, I looked into Andrew Tate's cases and I think he's completely innocent. Never. I've never seen anybody do that. That's crazy.
And that's very similar to my client.
But despite the defenses, Tate's own words tell a different story. When it comes to these indefensible clips of
oh, this is interesting. This is actually, I like this. I don't always get chats that contribute to the actual the video I'm reacting to, but this is actually a really interesting point. So Mr. Pizza says, LOL, I guess I wouldn't be a conservative then. I have no intentions of getting married or anything. So just to clarify, when we're talking about getting married or supporting marriage in the nuclear family as being a conservative value, you don't have to want to get married in order to be a conservative, but you have to believe that marriage is a good thing and promote it for like the people who are at all interested in sexual activity or creating a family or whatever. So it's different to be like, oh, I don't want to get married at all, than to be like, you guys are losers if you're trying to get married, which is what Andrew Tate said there. Those are two very different things. Don't think that you can't. I don't know if you're a conservative or not, to be honest, but don't feel like you can't be a conservative if you don't want to get married. That's not how it works. Very, very good point and very, very good question. I'm glad that you brought that up, Mr. Pizza. Mr. Pizza also said, why people still try to defend him is just wild. Andrew Tate is not a defendable person whatsoever. I want to say he said some good things sometimes, but he hasn't said anything that you can't get from anywhere else. I don't want to act like everything that Andrew Tate says is wrong or bad, but what I do want to make sure is clear to my audience is that Andrew Tate is someone who says so many things that are wrong, borderline hateful, just incorrect, bad advice, poor advice, misinformation, that he is useless as a source of advice. Now, if you're looking for memes and jokes, that's fine, but he's serious so often that like you can't even really get that by tuning into one of his Rumble streams. You know what I mean? And that's just the truth.
They probably wouldn't be happening if you were not yourself.
Oh, Mr. Pizza says, if people want to get married and have kids, more power to them. It's just not for me personally. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And so that is a conservative value, that like marriage is a good thing. The nuclear family is good. It might not be for me, but you know, other people should do that if they feel like it. Like that is a conservative value. Now, a A left-wing value would be to say that marriage is nothing special, is not something that most people should necessarily strive towards. If people get married, they shouldn't have children, right? Like the anti-natalist position, which you see very popular in certain pockets of the internet. Those are the types of things that'd be like on the left wing, and they would not be conservative. I don't know if they'd be like liberal necessarily. The left wing has changed so much and gone so radical that, you know, I don't think that liberalism is emblematic of all of the values that the left holds at the moment, but it's certainly not conservative. So those are like the difference between like the right wing views of things and the left wing view of things.
And that's very similar to my client.
But despite the defenses, Tate's own words tell a different story. When it comes to these indefensible clips of Tate admitting to exactly what he's being charged with, they all, as well as Tate, claim that these clips were over a decade ago.
My webcam company, things that happened 10 years ago. And that was a past life. You're talking about something that happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago. From 10 years ago. From 10 years ago. Things from 10 years ago. The idea that you did something 10 years ago.
I also take exception to, I think, digging back 10 years.
What do they think the statute of limitations should be? 5 years? 2 months? 10 days? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Even a quick look at the facts prove otherwise, because if that were the case, then how do you explain him saying things like this?
I also have an OnlyFans business. For the last 2 to 3 years, I was making money on OnlyFans from its inception all the way up till now.
Right now during the pandemic, OnlyFans is blowing up. If you want your girls to be elite, I'm going to teach you how to do that.
Both Andrew Tate and Tristan both bragged about these things until right before they got arrested.
It's my OnlyFans management agency. If you want to see how I've done this year so far.
I wish he'd included the dates for this like he did for some of the other videos. I trust him. I don't think he's being deceptive here. What do you mean? But I just wish that for transparency's sake, so that we could get an understanding of what the timeline is exactly, I wish that he had put the dates up here.
In the midst of a pandemic.
But that's on the Tates. The problem is that the same right-wing conservative influencers who consistently talk about how evil porn is decide to not only platform a man who literally made his money from porn.
I first made my millions of dollars. The first time I ever became a millionaire was with Webcam Studio.
But they could also easily find evidence that Tate is lying about his alleged charges if they wanted to, since it's been all over the internet for years now. This apparent hypocrisy is glaring, condemning porn while publicly promoting someone who made his fortune on it. And if integrity and truth are no longer a priority, then what does that say about the future of the movement? This raises the question, are these influencers united by conservative and Christian values anymore? Well, no, I don't believe they are. There seems to be a new loyalty at play here that reveals what's really driving the movement today. Before we get into that, did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? And cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam that FBI calls house stealing. House alarms, doorbell cameras, and deadbolts won't work against these thieves.
Okay, let's see. While the ad is running. Andrew Tate is far from innocent, bro, is guilty beyond belief. That's from Mr. Pizza. Mr. Pizza also said, I do have to admit, Andrew Tate, I do have to admit, has some good advice at some times. I've seen some of those like motivational videos pop up, and it was using Andrew Tate, using things Andrew Tate said, and it was very true. But also at the same time, Andrew Tate constantly has changed his opinions on the same questions depending on the interview. I've seen it personally when I've seen some of those interviews. Oh, that's interesting. I actually did not notice that, but I don't watch enough Andrew Tate to know that. England Canadian said, yo, hey, yo. What's up? I was just reading some of the chats while this ad plays in this video that I was reacting to, but I guess we can skip it now.
Lock.com, promo code meme, and thank you to Home Title Lock for sponsoring this portion of the video, as it really does make a huge difference for us. All right, now back to the video. So what's this new loyalty that's driving the conservative movement today, and what caused it to change? Well, as far as I can tell, much of this started with how a lot of conservative Christians handled Trump's past immorality. Instead of rebuking his apparent infidelity, divorces, and controversial statements, a lot of people treated them as trivial and dismissed legitimate concerns as leftist attacks. And we saw the same thing happen when it came to people.
I will say that whole like just grab him. I'll just say that quote. I never understood why people found that to be so aggressive and abrasive, especially people who they condone and support fornication. extramarital sexual activity. I was surprised that they were all up in arms about that, because it wasn't like he was talking about doing anything unconsensual, from what I could tell, right? He was saying that the people allow him to do that. So I didn't understand why that was so controversial. But that said, this is a guy who, at least as far as we know, he's cheated on his wife before, gotten multiple divorces. I think he's got like half children here and there. His family is relatively broken, for a broken family. The fact that he's married is surprising, but his family is not intact. It is not nuclear. And so, I don't think that he's ever gone on the record supporting Judeo-Christian values. So because of that, it did always surprise me that the Christian conservatives did glom onto him in 2015 and 2016. Now, for me, I'm not looking for some Christian saint when I'm deciding on who to vote for. I had reservations about Trump in 2016 for other reasons, part of which was that he was very untested and he had no political record or track record. So we had no idea how good of a president he would actually be. I also felt like he wasn't as conservative as the other people that he was running against, like Ben Carson and Ted Cruz and some of those other folks. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but all of that to say, the fact that Christians connected with him so much just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, What Do You Meme, I think, is going to talk about this here. So while I don't view these quotes that he's about to pull up as negatively as someone like he might, or most people in the mainstream might view them, there were enough reservations to be like, I don't understand why the majority of the right, I understand why the majority of the right supported him, because marketing, the way that he was treated initially in the mainstream media, I was like, oh, look, he's running for president. Isn't that cool? Isn't that interesting? Until he actually became a political threat. But just especially for the Christians, I just don't understand it. But yeah, he's going to get into that, I think.
Much of this started with how a lot of conservative Christians handled Trump's past immorality. Instead of rebuking his apparent infidelity, divorces, and controversial statements, a lot of people treated them as trivial and dismissed legitimate concerns as leftist attacks. And we saw the same thing happen when it came to people like Andrew Tate, who co-opted this same strategy under the name of a Matrix attack.
The Matrix has attacked me.
Framing all legitimate criticisms as a conspiracy. And on top of that, a lot of today's conservative influencers have lifestyles that contradict its traditional values.
Yeah, you know who that is? That's Milo Yiannopoulos, right? He is, I don't know what happened. He was a right-wing troll and rage baiter. I think it'd be fair to call him alt-right. Very hilarious. In his heyday, he was one of my favorite political commentators because of how funny he was, even if I didn't align with him on all his beliefs. Dude is hilarious. But he was gay. He had a boyfriend for quite a while. Then he ended up saying that he was straight or whatever and throwing an engagement ring into the river or whatever. It seemed kind of strange. It felt like he was grifting because he had recently gotten the job opportunity at a right-wing Catholic broadcasting network or something on the internet. Very, very strange, very weird stuff. But yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos is a pretty good example, right? Being, I would say that promoting an LGBT lifestyle or being very open and proud about being LGBT is not a conservative value. So very, very nice deep cut there from What Do You Meme? He truly understands the conservative mind.
Of that, a lot of today's conservative influencers have lifestyles that contradict its traditional values. Dave Rubin, for example, recently had a...
Okay, that's a more obvious example. Dave Rubin also, he is gay. He has a He has a husband. He's got children by way of surrogates, I believe. I don't think that he got his husband pregnant. But yeah, somehow he's been widely accepted among conservatives, especially Christian conservatives, despite being LGBT. Now, I mean, to be fair, just because you're LGBT doesn't mean that you can't be in the conservative movement, or it doesn't mean that you can't collaborate with Christians or whatever. But it's one thing to be like, okay, we're aligned on these things, than to also be like, okay, I'm going to be a big ally of your cause like a massive supporter, because like, you know, if you're actively living a lifestyle that is not in line with the values that you want to promote, then it does come off as like a little hypocritical, right? Like being like, oh, you know, marriage is between one man and one woman, and then not criticizing Dave Rubin at all for getting married to a man. You know what I mean?
Have lifestyles that contradict its traditional values. Dave Rubin, for example, recently had a child through surrogacy with his husband. Caitlyn Jenner and Blair White are both trans, and Trump's support for certain broad abortion exceptions has played a major role in shifting the party away from its once firm pro-life stance. Now, of course, I have nothing against these people personally. My only point is to highlight the fact that this would have been unheard of several years ago due to the conflicts with core conservative values. This shift in priorities have led conservatives to embrace figures like Tate, who's unmarried, has multiple children with different mothers, and quite literally built his fortune by exploiting women and vulnerable men through pornography.
I became a multi-millionaire. I did this by creating a webcam studio.
We were taking their money, all of it.
And Elon Musk, who's also married and has 12 children from multiple women. Or even Amber Rose, an atheist who launched the famous slut walk, encouraging women to be promiscuous. Now, it's one thing to have a past. Everyone does. That is not...
What is that? Actually, no, please don't tell me. Please don't tell me. I don't want to know. That sounds horrible. What in the world, bro? Dang, the doctors clinics, we're probably gonna be having a field day with that thing. I don't know what the heck is that?
The issue. The real issue is that these figures appear to be unrepentant and openly embrace lifestyles contrary to traditional conservative values.
It's because conservatism has become about ideology versus lifestyle. You can do whatever you want as long as you vote a certain way and support certain political policies. You're conservative. That's how it works now. It sort of feels like the conservative movement has been entirely co-opted by maybe not special interests necessarily, but by content creators and political parties to serve their own agendas. To be like, okay, if you support our agenda, then you're a conservative. There were people who were going after Kyle Rittenhouse because he supports the First Amendment in a way that's stronger than Trump does. So Trump, by the way, Trump's administration did sign multiple key gun control legislation measures, including a bump stock ban. It was under Donald Trump's administration. I remember right when he was complaining about that, but not criticizing Trump about that at all, interestingly enough. But, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse was like, you know what, I'm not going to support Trump because he does not support First Amendment, the Second Amendment in the same way that I do. He got slammed by all these people saying, oh, you're not really conservative. You're not really on the right. You're fake. You're phony. I'm not going to associate with you at all. I'm losing my support of you. And by the way, Kyle Rittenhouse, this is very strange, is someone who has been venerated by the right after having to use the Second Amendment to defend himself while trying to help others during a very violent George Floyd rally, where someone came up to him, was trying to attack him, and to defend himself, he had to shoot at the person after the person would not leave him alone. And so after that, the right venerated him in a way that was very strange. Like, they brought him up to TPUSA and shot off all these fireworks and things. It was very, very odd and very weird to celebrate someone who basically just had to defend himself. You know, it's just like the normal thing to do. And, you know, you shouldn't get a ribbon for defending your own life, but they did that. And so these people were fawning over him. But then, as soon as they didn't support the person who was part of their agenda, right? Our agenda is to get Donald Trump elected. And so when Kyle Rittenhouse doesn't help them with their agenda, all of a sudden he's not conservative anymore. It's wild. It's crazy. But I like how he's pointing out that conservatism has shifted away from actually living your life in a conservative way.
Leaders appear to be unrepentant and openly embrace lifestyles contrary to traditional conservative values. So allowing them to be spokesmen for the movement seems problematic if they're supposed to be united on conservative values. But it's clear that they aren't. So if not things like family values, what does unite the Conservative Party today? Well, the answer is simple: contrarian figures who oppose the left. The new conservative movement's highest loyalty no longer seems to be...
True. Why do we think that Tim Pool is viewed as a conservative now? because as much as he is still a liberal, I believe, a classical liberal, he is viewed to be on the right. Why is that? Well, it's because he's contrarian and because he primarily criticizes Democrats. All you have to do to be on the right is criticize the Democrat, and you're gone. You can't, there is no center in the mind of the left and in the mind of the mainstream, and I use the quotations marks of my fingers because as the popular vote showed in the 2024 election, the mainstream is not what is most popular among the population, but is what the population believes is the most popular position held by the rest of the population, if that makes sense. I use the word population too much, but yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of where I think that we stand societally.
Figures who oppose the left. The new conservative movement's highest loyalty no longer seems to be to positive values like morality or biblical principles. Instead, their primary allegiance is to one thing: being anti-woke. Over time, countless conservatives have shifted from standing for something to simply standing against the left, even if that means embracing figures who actively undermine their same core values.
Remember when being conservative was about wanting to shrink the government and, lower government spending and lower taxes? What happened to that?
This change, this shift, it doesn't just affect political discussions. It also impacts how conservative Christians are perceived and how they influence culture. And ultimately, this compromises the Christian witness, making it harder to present a consistent and credible message to the world, and it also weakens the church's ability to disciple and lead with integrity. So this is the danger of allowing ourselves to be more united to a political party than the principles of Christ. Without us even realizing that is happening, we're quickly going from holding to classical Christian ethics like being anti-abortion to actively embracing it due to a shift in the political thinking of our party. And as these man-made and worldly systems continue to change, our loyalty to Christ above these changes shouldn't. We should follow Christ first, even when it's difficult, and not only when it's convenient. So to say that this is the end of the conservative Christian movement might be hyperbolic, but the point still remains. Christian conservatives who are firmly rooted in biblical values are becoming increasingly rare, and their influence likely won't survive much longer if we don't fix the problem. And the solution isn't abandoning politics, but instead ensuring that our deepest convictions are shaped by God's word rather than political lines. Because, as Paul says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I believe that if we're intentional about this, then we can break this trend. And it starts with each one of us taking an honest step back and asking ourselves, are we truly following Christ first, or are we just following the crowd? Now, this video, we only scratched the surface because I wasn't able to get into more details. So if you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and hit the like button on your way out, and then check out one of these videos where I provide strong evidence that I wasn't able to include here. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. What do the comments say? I'm a Christian first, a conservative second. Based, absolutely based. This is what happens when conservative begins to mean anything that's not liberal. Yeah, and blame the left for that one. The left kind of caused that to happen. Let's see here. As a 62-year-old man, I can say conservatives ain't what they used to be. I think there's another problem at play: hyphenated Christianity. Conservative Christian, liberal Christian, black Christian, that's me, patriotic Christian, gay Christian, the list is without end. The hyphenation allows us to serve ourselves first and God second, if ever. True. Absolutely true. Conservatism and Christianity can have some overlapping values, but the problem arises when people treat them like they're synonymous. Yes! Dude, this annoyed me so much. There were these like right-wing, what were they called? Like, there's like AmFest and like these other conventions. That's the word, conventions, where conservatives would be getting together. I think there was the GOP convention as well. The RNC was this too. But these people would get together, and it's like a political thing, right? But then they'd have these like religious figures popping up as speaking as if they're like oracles from God, talking about how the president that they, the political candidate that they like is going to like magically fix all of our problems, and like, oh, I know God told me that Donald Trump is going to save America. Like, bro, what are you doing? And bro, and you know how sometimes you turn on the news and something makes you angry? Like, that's literally what happened here. I literally was going to go see a movie And I was like, you know what? Like, the AmFest thing or whatever is happening. No, not AmFest. It was the GOP, the RNC, the Republican National Convention. The RNC is happening right now. Let me turn on the radio and listen to this. I think. What did he say? I think some person on there was saying like, God told me that Donald Trump is going to give us the country we deserve, and I started white knuckling my steering wheel and started like mildly hyperventilating because I was like, I was getting amped up, and not in a good way, because I was like, these people are spitting like profuse heresies from this political platform that they're treating like a pulpit, and it's not okay. Very, very annoying. I'm glad that we've got people like What Do You Mean pointing this out, because this is very, very bad, very, very serious.